Awesome. Thank you so much, Joy, and thank you to everyone who is here and attending the webinar. The point of this webinar is really to use our education and our information to help consult and advise you on really how do you strategize to scale out your firms and how do you do that using automation. Technology is moving so fast nowadays, and why not jump on the train and take advantage of that to scale out our law firm? So I'm super excited to be here with Chris Jarvis, and I have been working together for over 4 years or so now. And, he's been entrusted with many law firms, many attorneys to be able to help them scale out their businesses. And he's done such an amazing job at that. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to talk about on today's webinar with us. And, in addition to having some good pieces of conversation for everyone to benefit from today.
All righty. I appreciate you guys for, taking the time to be with us today here in this webinar. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Joy, for the great introduction. Very excited to help everyone get into this type of mindset where we can help you guys scale your firm and just truly save as much time as we possibly can and just create a very great experience across the board, not just for the attorney side, but also for your clients. So, with that being said, let's just kind of dive into some of the things that we'll attack today. And then that way, we can take some questions towards the end and just make sure that we're giving you guys the best information possible out of this webinar today. Okay, awesome. So as far as like what the idea is today is we're trying to help you guys scale and get a good idea on how to, automate the practice, make everything a little bit more efficient, more user friendly, and quicker in the essence of not just, like I said, for the firm, but also for the client's experience. So some of the things that we'll touch on today is how to automate your workflows. That's very important. Seamless case management across the board with softwares like Practice Panther, that becomes a very, very easy task, especially if you're the head of the firm and you're having to continuously be on different meetings and moving around different clients. You want to make sure that you're on the go, but you continuously have that information at hand. And a cloud-based solution like Practice Panther really pushes that for you. So we'll give you a little bit more information on that. Built-in payments, we want to make sure that, again, this comes back to your client's experience. We want to simplify the way that you can receive those payments, not only just for yourselves, but also for the client, so that they don't need to continuously be sending out cash or physical checks or anything like that. And then also, securing the built-in e-signature in Practice Panther as well. So, obviously, we all just went through a pretty interesting last 2 years of pandemic, so it made everybody have to work remotely. Making that possibility very, very easy in a software like Practice Panther, it's a very important thing to get your documents, signed and good to go with all your clients. So again, we'll touch on different subjects about that, and we'll continue moving down, and we'll take any question that you guys have at the end. We'll be happy to answer it and just continue on. Okay. Awesome. So today's discussions, we're going to go through, the importance of a clean intake, using templates to speed up the internal process, the power of automating your workflows, scaling through batch operations, and then tips to stay organized that we can give you. So let's get into the first one. So let's talk about the intake process, right? The intake, which is usually just that initial communication, that initial relationship with the client that you're building, we want to make sure to make it very, very efficient. Take a lot of this work away from the attorney's hands so that they don't have to manually be inputting all the information. Also giving your client the ability to fill out those intake forms, from wherever they are, right? They don't need to come into the office. They can actually do it from their phone, from their tablet, iPad, whatever they got going on, from home. And then that way it just becomes a very, very easy maneuver to get all that information into the software. So let's get into the first bullet point: fast and seamless intakes. So One of the main things that I really appreciate about these intake forms for every law firm that I've helped scale, and they've actually really appreciated it after utilizing it, is the fact that if it's an in-person client that comes into the office, we want to make sure that they don't just grab a clipboard and a sheet of paper and then fill it out, which then creates another step for you guys, would be grabbing the sheet of paper from that intake form and then adding it to the software, right? So what we can do is automate that process. Create your intake form, for example, in Practice Panther. That intake form can be automated, which means that you can open it up on a tablet or like an iPad with a link even that you could even send your client via email before they even get to the office, so that they can fill out the intake form. When they fill out that intake form, it automatically generates the new contact in the system for you. And then it allows you to take the next step, which we could be talking about, maybe sending the engagement letter, reaching out to that client, whatever the next step would be. But you just automated that whole first step of receiving the client's information, adding it to the software, and then putting up a follow-up task to potentially check back in with that, new lead or new potential client that you might receive. Now, I mentioned something there that is a question that gets asked a lot when I talking to firms about this individual feature, right? So one of the things is, okay, it's great to scale your intake form, but can I have the intake form create a task once it is filled out, right? So a lot of times things can slip through the cracks. One of those things being, if my client fills out the intake form and it's just created on the software, well, then I could potentially, have a super busy day and then completely forget to follow up with that client, right? So what the intake forms also have an ability of doing, for example, in Practice Panther, is not only does it automatically generate that information in the system for you, and it creates that initial contact, but it can drop a task, a follow-up task on the calendar automatically, which, for example, Practice Panther integrates both with Google and Outlook, which would mean you would see it on both calendars. But then this task would automatically appear in your to-do list for the day to then reach out to the client, right? So we're talking about not only streamlining and making the process and the experience for the client much easier, but we're also making sure that my firm is staying on top of following up with that potential client and doing the due diligence of what we need to do in those initial steps. So that's one of the things that really intake forms can simplify for everyone. Um, the intake forms is customized, can be customized completely to your liking, right? So you can create different custom fields. You guys can put your logos on it. You can create a 13-page intake if you want to. I mean, I've definitely seen it done. So there's definitely no limit on that. And we want to make sure that it's very customizable, because obviously not every attorney and firm does everything the exact way. Now, with that being said, when you fill out that intake form or you customize that intake form, it also gives you that ability to then look through it, to also be sure that you're getting all the information needed. And yet again, you could send this link not only via email, but you could even text this link, for example, from Practice Panther to your client. Again, they could potentially have some problems with their emails. Well, you can make it even easier by sending a text with the link on it so that they can fill it out and just make it much easier for them. Now, from lead to referral, really cool thing here. So exactly what we were talking about. They fill out that intake form, that lead comes in, and then we need to do some follow-up steps, right? So when that lead comes in automatically, when the client fills it out, then we want to take the next step of potentially sending that engagement letter, reaching out to the client. And in Practice Panther, for example, you can tag each individual contact as a hot, warm, cold lead, which means that it'll allow you to understand where we're at with that individual contact and then transition it to an actual client and then kick off for the matter, right? So intake forms in a nutshell is really that first step that every firm is going to take. And we want to, again, make it very user friendly for the client themselves, but also we want to save the attorneys, the paralegals, the assistants, all that time that is being spent manually inputting information so that, again, we can just continue to save time and focus down on the main things that we need to do throughout the day. So that's just some of the
Yeah.
main things that intake forms really come into play. Um, Sam, would you happen to have any additional information to add into this slide?
Yeah, I mean, 100% everything you said is are things that we see all the time, right? And I think you can just see even from this PowerPoint slide here that's not even in the program yet, how much automation there actually is. I love the idea of embedding these on your website. If I'm an attorney in, Southeast Florida, for example, anybody who's Googling, great criminal defense attorney or state family attorney, and my website comes up, it's going to go to the contact page. Most of the time, the clients do that. They want to get a phone number, or most of the time, they want to leave a little description. So, this is exactly what they're going to be doing. And it's going to be transitioning that information, like Chris was saying, right from your website into your Practice Panther account. And I highly suggest, even if it's not Practice Panther, find something that's going to help you streamline this. This is going to eventually save you time. Things are going to be much more efficient. And that's the whole goal of today's conversation is streamlining so that you can scale out the business. And then my favorite thing that I always used to hear when we pitch intake forms is how many attorneys have, their clients come in or their potential clients. And like Chris was saying, these clients are filling out their information on a clipboard and a piece of paper. I don't know about the people on this call, or Chris, I think has a little bit better handwriting, but my handwriting is horrible. So if I'm filling that out and then you have to read it off this paper and put it into your system, this is eliminating that risk of misinformation. So that's always been a huge thing from my perspective on how this automation tool has helped attorneys grab and obtain information that they're looking for, in addition to obviously branding it so you can white label it with your information, your colors, and you can have multiple intake forms. It doesn't even have to just be one. If you practice different areas of law and you want to have multiple intake forms on your website for those different areas, you're able to do that as well. So this is some really cool stuff that we've built around our intake forms. And, Chris is noting all the amazing features and benefits that it provides to our users on our system.
Amazing, amazing. Exactly. And that's exactly correct. One of the main things is a lot of firms are utilizing or rather practicing a lot of different areas of law, right? So you want to make sure that instead of having to switch up your intake form multiple times, you can just have different scenarios, different templates, different options so that, again, streamline, scale your practice. This is what these softwares are about. This is what the future is going to become. It's already here, but we want to make sure we bring everybody in a very smooth transition so that it's not overwhelming once those softwares get really far ahead, which they already really are. But again, we can all gradually transition and become part of this new system or way of processing and scaling firms. So that's awesome. Thank you for all that. And thank you for the compliment, Sam. I don't know about my handwriting, but um, all right, guys. So now let's talk about utilizing your custom document templates. So what are really custom document templates about? That is really going to be most of those documents that you utilize on a daily basis, whether it be with an initial client, whether you're midway through a case and you utilize that document left and right. We can call them engagement letters, retainer agreements, wills, all the above that you constantly change information into, or you're now manually inputting your information into those document templates. Let's say you potentially have them saved separately on a Word document template, and then now you're just going in there to manually input that information. Well, yet again, this comes back to that individual point that we're trying to make about scaling and making it more automated. So, what we would do in a scenario of utilizing a software here, which would be a great option for anybody, is grabbing those templates and saving them in a case management software as an automated template. What that would do is that instead of, let's say, my assistant, my paralegal, myself as an attorney, I need to send out, for example, I just received an intake form. I know that this is going to be a potential new client. And so therefore now I need to send my engagement letter, right? So if we get tons of potential clients across the board throughout the day, week, month, year, we don't want to have to always go into that initial engagement letter, for example, and manually change all the information, right? From, Juan to Sam, from Sam to Chris, from everybody. So what we'll do is we will save those as a template inside of your case management software, which then would allow you to just go to that contact that got automatically created by using those intake forms, and then be able to apply the template to that individual client or the matter, so that the information not only is being automatically correctly transferred over into the template, but it's saving you so much time from manually typing in all the different lines of information that you usually need on that document. Again, this is one of those things where for different softwares like Practice Panther or any other one where you can create your different custom fields, it allows you so that when you do input all that information into the software, it is a simple click of a button, choosing the template that you need, and then applying it to the client or the matter. That instantly shows the information into that document template. And then the next step would essentially be sending that document out to the client via email, right? Now, that's very, very important. I see a whole lot of manual data entry these days, and it surprises me, right? Because I've helped tens of thousands of firms to make the transition. Once they make the transition and they automate and scale their practice, it's literally night and day. I've actually had them reach out to me a year after. They've started with three people in the software, for example, and now they were able to scale and grow their firm to, let's say 10 people or seven, or just constantly giving them a little bit more option to not only, like I said, automate the practice, but also to grow your firm. This is about that time saving, right? So these documents that are extremely repetitive left and right, we want to make sure that you guys continuously automate those. Again, saving not just the attorney, but your entire staff so much manual data entry, and therefore allowing you guys to be able to track more time, to build, to really focus down on the main things that we want to be doing instead of the tedious little things that we need to add to, for example, intake forms or your Word document templates. Um, this is really, really customizable as well. Any template, you can add your logo, you can add your letterhead, you can organize it and structure it the exact way that you want it to look. The only thing that you would do on a software like Practice Panther, anyone that can automate that particular scenario, would be just copying and pasting the custom fields that you created straight into that document. Then you save it as a template, and that is it. All you have to do moving forward is apply that template to any client or matter, and that information instantly goes into that template. And I could even take it one step further. For example, one thing that not all softwares have, but for example, Practice Panther has this ability. We just added maybe like 3 months ago native e-signatures in the system. So what you could do is the next step is, okay, I got my engagement letter, or let's say a retainer agreement, automatically populated and ready to go. So then directly from that software, you could send it out to your client, and they could electronically sign it and have it right back to you inside of that software in that individual profile, so you can see it right there. So not only are you storing your documents and being able to organize them right at the contact or matter level, but you're also organizing all your e-signatures that are coming in for those documents and being able to see it all in one center platform. This, in a nutshell, saves you guys a ridiculous amount of manual data entry. So that's
Yeah, it's
it.
really so powerful. There's so much power behind it and how it automates all of that. I mean, just hearing you say it again and understanding what it's able to accomplish in the essence of, okay, you have your intake form on your website, potential client fills it out, that goes right into your system. Then you can automate the document without ever having to, replace old data with new data because it's just taking the information that was filled out on that intake form. So you apply the template, you email it right to that potential client, and they can electronically sign it. It's like, how much time has that saved so many of the people, and the people that you've spoken to over the past few years since all this has been implemented? I can't even imagine. And obviously every hour saved can be an hour earned, and that's the goal at the end of the day, to be able to scale your businesses out and your law firms out using, technology and features and automation like this. So I just love hearing you talk about it, Chris, because it just reminds me how simple it is, but how much power is actually behind the features itself. It's really awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the main thing here is, like I said, or you just mentioned even, is how much time does that really save you? And realistically, it's a ridiculous amounts of time. Even if it's in small increments, you can really feel it throughout your entire day, not only through your day, but then you're going to see it. You could even run a report and look at your year to see how much time you were able to really capture outside of this. So definitely a really, really, powerful tool that you guys can use. Always remember, if I use a document or a template multiple times a day, continuously throughout my week or month or year, I might as well find a way so that I can have the information show up on that template without me having to always go back in there, delete, and then add or copy paste left and right. Okay. So, Word document templates, let's attack those, save a lot of time, guys. All right. So,
Yeah, my mom wishes she had those for all the late notes to school she had to used to write.
that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. I would say the exact same thing too. I don't know that my mom would be that right now though. All right. So now let's dive into the next one. Okay. So one thing that we've been, really attacking in this is obviously, scaling and then creating some type of an automated process, right? So here's where workflows really come into play. So a lot of firms and solo practitioners, firms, anybody that's practicing law, if you have a set of tasks and events that is very repetitive for you, meaning there's a pattern to it. So when I start a client or when I start a specific matter, or potentially even after a specific event, maybe I do these 3 to 5 tasks and events in X period of time, right? And that's usually just the way that I go about this scenario, right? Everybody can have their own different style, which that's why these workflows are very, very customizable, right? Now, instead of having my assistant or my paralegal or even myself have to go into that client or that matter and manually creating each task and event one at a time, this first, then that, 3 days after this, I'm going to do this, and 4 days after that, I'm going to do this, right? All of that can be as simple as creating a workflow template, right? So the workflow template would essentially be designed exactly how your flow goes. So that instead of having to go into that client or matter and manually creating those tasks and events, you can just go and apply the workflow. Keep in mind that there can be different scenarios, right? So it could be a scenario where we start a client. It could be a scenario where now it's a specific type of matter, or maybe after a specific court hearing, I need to do these 3 to 4 things after the fact. Whatever it is, these workflow templates can be edited and can be customized in any way you want. You can have multiple workflow templates for different scenarios. And the cool thing with those workflow templates is not only that it's helping me automate my entire flow, but it's also helping me automate my entire team's flow, so my entire staff. In those workflows, you can already have it preset, so pre-delegated. Meaning, let's say the head attorney does the first event, boom, and then the paralegal goes to the first task that follows that event. Perfect. So the workflow already knows who that's going to. Then the assistant goes to the following task, right? 3 days after this is completed. Boom, perfect. So as soon as I apply the workflow, this is going to auto populate under the client and matter, and it'll drop on both my calendars and my agenda, and it'll update my entire team. So realistically, if I know that I have a pattern that I'm about to follow again, and I need to not only assign different tasks and events to myself, but to my team, my paralegals, my assistants, and so on, my partners. All I need to do is apply a workflow and then automatically have that populate into everybody's calendars and agenda. And you can always go into the actual contact or matter itself inside of the software to see the entire workflow and how it's actually structured, right? Who's completed what, who's done what, and so on. Another thing with these workflow templates, it helps you reduce error, right? So a lot of times You might forget, okay, I needed to do this 2 days after this. Well, I didn't, right? Well, you can put reminders on these tasks and events. You can actually make it so that it sends you these reminders. It keeps you very updated. Call it a pop-up reminder, an email reminder. You can even have text message reminders go out, not just to yourself and your staff, but you can also have it go out to your clients. This is very important. So a lot of times the clients completely forget that they either need to complete or attend something, right? So what I want to make sure that doesn't happen is that they don't forget anything that I need them to do for me. So what I'll do is I'll create a task for an event, and then not only will I assign it to my team, but I'll also assign it to that individual client. As long as I have their email and cell phone on file, they should also be receiving the email and text message reminders about any task or event that they're part of, right? So not only am I keeping that margin of error very limited so that there is no errors, but I'm also on my end and my staff end, in my like entire team's end, my firm, but I'm also making sure that I'm holding my clients very accountable, and I'm very like on top of what they need to do and what they need to attend, right? So again, these workflows are phenomenal across the board. I mean, tons of firms. I've had firms just come into Practice Panther because of this firm. Oh, and one of the reasons I actually just had a note on these workflows about them. So one thing that Practice Panther is like one of the only softwares that can do this is the fact that we can create a conditional workflow, right? So what does that really mean? A conditional workflow makes me or allows me to make a task contingent upon completion of the task before it, right? So if I change a date on my entire workflow, let's say that that initial task now moves from the 5th to the 10th. Well, I know that if I change the date on that first task, everything following it under that workflow is going to automatically autocorrect itself, right? So I don't have to manually change days across the board left and right. And one of my favorite things, because I'm very OCD when it comes to calendar and agenda, I don't like to overwhelm my calendar and my agenda left and right. So I don't want the workflow to just grab all these 10 things that I need to do and instantly drop it into my agenda or calendar. I wanted to go step by step. What do I need to do first? Okay, let's do this. You focus down on this. Perfect. Click completed. And then the next thing will automatically populate in your calendar in your agenda, and you can then focus down on that. I multitask a lot, and things can really slip through the cracks when you're just touching things left and right. So if you just really take the time to focus down on each individual task, and you know that when you complete that, the next one will trigger in, then that is the best way to organize so that you're not constantly going all over the place, searching and looking for what you completed and for what follows it after the fact. Anything else that you wanted to add, Sam, on these?
Not to add, but again, you're so well versed in a lot of these features and things, but I do want to highlight something you mentioned, and it's on the PowerPoint here, is how customizable these are. Every law firm that I've spoken to and that Chris has spoken to, which I'm sure he can preach about, is different. Every law firm practices a little bit differently, practices different areas, likes their steps on what they do a different way, likes to, even when it comes to billing, likes things a different way. And this is what the custom workflows allow you to do with our system. As Chris was alluding to, you can completely customize these. What do you like to do first? When do you like to do it? If task A is completed, when do you want task B to appear? And who should complete task B? So on and so forth. So it's really an amazing feature. And I also want to point out and highlight that, 4 or 5 years ago, when Chris and I were doing demos and things, we had workflows, but they were not at the capabilities they are at today. And that just gives you some insight on how Practice Panther is evolving with that technology. We don't want to leave it behind and say, oh, we have workflows, they're fine, let's do something else. No, we keep building out on these, and it's really based off our customer feedback. No one knows what they need in the law offices more than the law firms themselves. So when you guys are telling us, hey, I have a task, but when I complete it, I need the other task to appear, we take that very seriously. We bring it to our teams and we implement these changes if we know there's demand for it across the board. So it just gives you an idea of how we're always building on top of the features that we have. So what you see in such a strong, powerful tool today is going to be even stronger tomorrow. And it's just something to understand in this world of technology running so fast, how important that is, no matter what you're doing or who you go with or how you practice. It's really, again, about just scaling yourself out and automating these things so that you can be a more successful lawyer in a more successful law firm.
Correct. All 100% correct. I mean, exactly what you said is we want to make sure that we get you guys gradually through getting into these softwares. And we also hear a lot of feedback from all of the attorneys, all of our firms. Like Sam said, you guys are the only ones that know how your firm runs and how you want things to flow. So, based on that, we'll give you as many tools as we possibly can. And then that also gives us the ability and the capability of looking into the future to give you future tools that you might have not even thought about, or you actually already gave us the idea to add it to the software. So again, the softwares or the software industry in itself is growing like crazy. This is where the future is going to end up in. It's already pretty much here entirely. So we want to make sure to gradually continue to grow instead of just staying stagnant and leaving the software as is. So that's great stuff. Now, let's talk about tracking time, right? So this should be one of the favorite ones for most law firms. Obviously, it's not necessarily everybody does hourly based matters. It can be flat fees, contingency, all the above. But then again, sometimes I've had firms that whether they are contingency based or flat fee based, they do really want to track that time to actually know if they are getting everything that they need based on how much time they're spending per client and per matter, right? So one of the main things that I've noticed and that I've actually been told as I'm talking to different firms, different, attorneys, is that a lot of times you're very busy, right? So you get a super packed day and you're touching different clients and different matters left and right. Now, you're not necessarily tracking your time as you go. And now you're waiting till the end of the day or even the end of the week to now put in all your time entries. So, what we've really studied on that is that on a monthly basis, you could lose up to 55 to 70% of your time if you don't track it as you go, right? Reason why is because we can't all remember absolutely everything that we did. I mean, if you do, hats off to you, and that's amazing. But if you get more and more clientele, more firms, or rather more clients and more matters, that's going to become very hard to continue to maintain. So what you really want to be super focused on is capturing as much time as you can left and right. So in Practice Panther, for example, one of the softwares that you can utilize, you have timers and you can create multiple timers. So for example, one thing would be, okay, I'm tracking time for this task that I'm doing for this client and matter, right? And one of the main things that I see a lot is that attorneys are literally the most needed people across the board, aside from like doctors, for example, or anything else that has a profession in that sense, because everybody is always trying to get to you, and they need it. They need that like attention very now in this moment. It's very important all the time. Everything's important, right? So what happens if I'm focused down in one client and in one matter, and I'm tracking time for something that I'm doing, and then I receive, for example, a phone call from a different client for a different matter. Now I want to make sure that I track that call, I capture that time, even if it's 20, 30 minutes. It's time that I need to be capturing so that I can receive payment on it, right? So what you can do is start another timer, and then it automatically pauses the one that you were using, and then you can track the time for that call, right? So in 2 seconds, you just paused what you were doing. You then jumped on a call with a different client and matter. You captured that time, you saved it, that went away, and it's now in the client's profile so that you can bill for it later. And then I can come right back into what I was currently focused down on and continue working on it and tracking my time on it. Right? This is a very, very powerful tool. We can start up to 20 timers on Practice Panther. One of the funny jokes I always throw in there is I tell every attorney to promise me not to do that to themselves, because I like to, keep your guys' sanity intact. I think you have plenty on your plate across the board. I don't know that 20 timers is going to really do some justice, but at least it'll give you the ability to track everything. So definitely one thing that you guys really, really want to do. Another thing is, you know, ditch your sticky notes, your pads, your anything that you're writing down your information on. You want to get away from that. You want to make sure that while you're tracking that time, you're writing your notes on that time entry. And then when that's saved, it automatically drops into the client in the matter, and you can see your notes inside of the software and see how much time you spent on it. Obviously, that can be edited, right? You can tweak it. You can say, maybe I don't want to charge them this much for this amount of time, whatever the case might be. It gives you the flexibility to then not only have all your notes in the software, but it also allows you to backtrack and see if you want to make any changes on your time entries across the board. So saves you a lot of time, keeps you very organized. Um, Another thing is, so you don't want to necessarily spend each individual time entry. Like if you have a lot of time entries, let's say I was working on John Doe's, estate planning case, for example, whatever. And I did a lot of things for this individual client or matter, or maybe I touched a bunch of different clients and matters. What you want to make sure is that you're actually putting in the time entries all in one shot instead of doing it one at a time, right? So what you could do is you could do a batch of time entries. So again, even if you have the time entry right there, you have the ability to use the timer. Let's say that your day was just absolutely packed. You didn't even have time to turn on the timer while you were doing things, right? Obviously, it could happen. Well, you could wait until the end of your day, and then you could backtrack to absolutely everything that you did for that entire day, week, or month, or whatever the case might be, right? Hopefully, it's just the day instead of waiting a whole week so that you capture the time as you go. But if that is the case, what I don't want to do is I don't want to go through my entire day and then have to manually create one time entry at a time. That's going to be super tedious. Yet again, that's not saving you time. So what it is here we're trying to do is scale your practice. The way you're going to do that is you're going to just do a batch time entry, right? That means that you can do 100 time entries in one go for different clients, different matter. And for example, in Practice Panther, when you choose the client and matter, it automatically knows the rate that you gave that client in that matter. Therefore, you don't need to remember the rate. You don't need to make the calculation. All you need to do is just put in the time, put your description, and then be able to automatically save 50 time entries in one shot. Here's the thing, too. In your time entries, for a lot of things that you guys do, it could be very repetitive as far as the description for that time entry, right? So if I'm prepping for trial, let's say that my description is always going to be trial prep on the time entry, right? So what you guys can do is create a shortcut. So your pre-selected items, meaning if I do this task every time and it's always the exact same description, I don't want to have to manually type in the description to my time entry. So what we will help you guys do, for example, in Practice Panther is create those pre-selected items with your codes on it. So I could just put PR, right? And it would say, or PT, and it would say prepping for trial. Boom, I would click on my item. The description automatically shows up on my time entry. And then all I have to do is just say, oh, this took me 2 hours or 30 minutes or whatever the amount of time was. Save that time entry. Again, it drops into your calendar and or rather into your contacts profile in your matter profile, and then you can bill for it whenever you're ready. Here's the thing. Once you're ready to bill, one really cool feature that, for example, Practice Panther has is that when you go to do like a batch bill, let's say you were going to knock out, 50 invoices, 1,000 invoices, however many, you can run this report that we call the money finding feature. So that's actually a report that shows you everything that you've completed across the board for all your clients and matters for the period of time that you're about to bill. And then it shows you whether you actually logged in the time for it or not. So that's why we call it the money finding feature. It's essentially just the activities report, but we call it that because at the end of the day, even if I am just amazing at tracking my time, maybe something accidentally slipped through the cracks. I've just been extremely busy. Well, I want to double down and check that report so that before I bill for everything, I make sure that nothing slipped in, and then that way I can capture the time for it. Right. So time entries, we're gonna, obviously say that it's one of the main things that you want to really, really double down on. You want to make sure that you're getting all the benefit of all the time that you're spending on the client and matter, and then really, really capitalizing on it once you're ready to bill. Cool. Sam, anything to add?
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it's just super insightful. There's a lot when it comes to the time entries, because at the end of the day, all the features, all the automation we have is in combination with a lot of our time and billing features, including, like you said, a lot of the batch time entry stuff to help save time, and the timers on the side. The other cool thing with our program is, let's say you're in your office and you start a timer on the side, but now you got to run to court or run to a meeting and it's for that same matter. If you run to the courthouse and you open up your phone, the app Practice Panther on your phone, that timer's still running and you can stop it at the courthouse. The idea behind all of this, and the tool I just mentioned and everything Chris has gone over, is again just to help kind of scale out the firm, to automate a lot of what you're doing manually and the tedious tasks that you're doing right now. Because without these tools and this functionality, we're going to be left behind, and we don't want to settle in the dust that's behind. We want to move forward and evolve with the technology, not just in the industry but in the world, so to speak. And again, just doing that and being able to have the tools to do that, whether it's with us or another program or another, piece of technology, I think at the end of the day, you just want to implement something and embed it into your firm. This way you can automate and scale out. And in addition to the tracking time here, I mean, Chris, if you want to go to the next slide, you're also going to be able to track the expenses and things. And we all know, in combination with your time and billing, you want to get reimbursed for these expenses, which Practice Panther makes easy. And I'm excited. Chris, tell us a little bit about how Practice Panther makes these expenses, an automated, easy part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. We can simplify this very much so. So expenses, right? Everything that you are, really putting into the client and the matter, we want to make sure that we're tracking these. We want to make sure that we're adding these to our bills. Another thing that is really cool with Practice Panther, for example, and some other softwares is that we allow you to attach your receipt to your actual expense. So it's actually full transparency with your client. They can see exactly what you're talking about. And you can also pay out your expenses from the trust account, right? So this is very important, right? We want to make sure that everybody in the firm, not only just everybody in the firm, but also the client itself, they know what you're putting into this matter, how much time, but also what you're spending for the case, what this is costing you guys. This is very, very easy to track in Practice Panther. Another thing that you can do is the same thing as the time entries, or making sure that we scale the entire practice, because this is the main thing that this is about. You could do batch entries of expenses as well, right? So if I have a bunch of different clients and matters that I have expenses for, instead of doing it one at a time, I could do it all in one shot and then just have all those expenses show up on my client and my matter profile, which then again, that just comes into the play of it will reflect in your invoice. And then that way the client is very aware of what's going on. Also, one of the main things that I've heard a lot is same thing with time entries as expenses, right? If you don't track your expense as you go, it could easily fall and slip through the cracks, right? So we want to make sure that we're capturing those expenses as soon as we can, and then making sure that if we have the receipt, might as well just have it and attach it to that expense and put it on the software. Can I pay it out from my trust? You could easily do it from within Practice Panther, for example. Or let's say that you're going to add that expense as additional into the invoice. You could easily add it on there as well. It's very, very easy to do. You can run reports on different categories of expenses. You could run it by contact, by matter. This way you can really see where your expense reports and where the majority of your expenses for any client or matter are going to fall under. This is actually very powerful in the system. And again, just keeps you guys from having to spend money without getting it back or capturing it on a client or matter. Simplify the whole step. Cool.
Perfect. Love it.
Now, let's talk about those flat fees. So again, this just kind of trickles down from the time entries to expenses to flat fees, right? And so again, just because you're charging, let's say hourly, or even if it's a flat rate case or contingency based, doesn't mean that you're not going to have additional flat fees to charge, right? So in Practice Panther or any other software to scale that, you could easily do it in batch form as well. You could also have multiple flat fees. Again, a firm, or rather a matter, doesn't have to just be hourly, or it doesn't just have to be contingency or flat, or just one flat rate. It can have multiple different styles of billing. Right? So we can actually capture that very easily in Practice Panther. Also add it to the invoice and be able to capitalize on that so that we're really capturing everything that we can. Cool. Awesome, guys. Now,
Incredible. One more thing on the flat fees that I want to point out is, a lot of programs out there also allow you to create a flat fee on the matter. Whereas, Chris was alluding to a little bit, and I just want to make it a point is with our system, you don't have to just say, okay, I'm taking on this case, it's going to cost you $5,000. You can itemize those flat fees with Practice Panther. A lot of programs, again, they'll let you put a matter flat fee. So the case is costing them X amount. But with Practice Panther, and again, every law firm's a little bit different, so it's really how you work and how your business runs. But with us, you also have the option to itemize those out. So maybe it's $5,000, but I'm charging you $1,500 for A, $2,500 for B, and another $1,000 for C, so on and so forth.
that's correct. Very correct.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, creating invoices, right? Saving time with that. So this is one of the biggest things for, firms and any, solo practitioner, huge firm. It always comes down to making sure that you're capitalizing on all your work, right? So creating these invoices is very important. Again, one thing that you don't want to do is have to manually. I actually just talked to an attorney that it was like around 3 or 4 people in the firm, and they were doing their invoices through Word. And as she was telling me, she started laughing because I went, "Are really?" And she goes, "This is the hardest thing that I've ever done. It just makes no sense." I showed her how to do it on Practice Panther, and it was day and night, right? So again, scaling your practice, saving that time, it all connects, right? Every slide that we've gone through is going to connect down to making that very scalable and very easy to use. So invoices, instead of just manually doing it yourself, you can literally go to the client or to the matter and you just generate the invoice. There's a little button that says generate invoice. All the time entries, all the flat fees, all the expenses that you have captured and put into that client or that matter, you can easily, with that click of a button, automatically have them on the invoice. Not only this, but when you create an invoice in Practice Panther, it brings you into a pre-billing stage, right? So a lot of times when we create our invoices, we want to edit them before the fact. So that's exactly what that is. A pre-billing stage is a second pair of eyes before you finalize your invoice. So you can actually go into the pre-billing stage, change time entries, expenses, flat fees, and so on, give discounts and whatever else, and then create that invoice with the click of a button. Now, also, you can create multiple invoices. So batch invoicing, instead of going, okay, I'm going to bill for last month for all my clients and matters, I can easily just say, all right, instead of doing it one at a time, I'm going to just go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to choose this date range. And you can actually break it down. Let's say you wanted to bill a specific type of client and matter, or just this type of people, whatever, completely up to you. You can filter through that individual client or matter, or just across the entire firm, and then be able to knock out 100 invoices with one click instead of manually going in one at a time and inputting that information. This is very, very important. Invoicing, that sometimes when I speak to firms, this is one of like their pain in the butts type of scenario, right? Like they don't want to deal with this. It's actually like it's taking them a day or two to do all their invoicing, all their billing. So whenever I talk to them and I show them the simplicity on how to get it done on a system like Practice Panther, it's literally just so eye-opening for them, because if I'm spending a day or a day and a half just doing billing and I can actually simplify that to maybe a 30-minute period, that's impressive. That's actually giving me an entire day to work with where I can do other things and focus down on other things. Um, Another thing that you can do with your invoices is you can break it down. You can break down different reports by tags, right? So you can tag your clients and your matters, which tags are just filters that are created by the firm. So what I could say is, if I wanted to see like only my invoice reports for my criminal clients from, let's say Miami-Dade County, that were referred by Steve, then I can actually see all of that, right? I can break down that report and see how many clients Steve's already sent me, how much payments how many payments I've received from those clients, and get a real big idea on how to, where I'm getting my money, how to break down those reports, and just kind of make it much easier. Um, a different scenario would be also where a firm has a contact that has multiple matters, right? So a client could have 50 matters, 5, 10, whatever. So instead of creating one individual invoice at a time, if you didn't want to do it that way, you could easily just say, okay, I want to break down where this invoice creates the entire invoice, but for each different matter, it's broken down per line, right? So it separates each matter inside of one invoice, and it actually reflects what you're billing for each individual matter. And all they need to do is just go ahead and pay for that one. Okay. So that's super, super
Awesome.
cool, very easy. Right. Now, batch email invoices quickly, same thing, right? So you want to grab all your invoices instead of manually sending it out one at a time, PDFing it, printing it, or anything like that. You want to just send them out all in batch form and have the same message go out to everybody, or you could individualize the message at certain points, right? So again, getting your invoicing and your billing done quickly and out of the way just simplifies your whole process. All right. Organizing with reports and tags. So we just kind of talked about this, tags and reporting. So tags is just going to be that filter that gets created by the firm so that I can break down my reports very specifically. So I can have a breakdown of multiple tags and then be able to search throughout the entire system without needing to just look at a very broad report. I can actually make it super detailed and be able to see exactly what I'm trying to look at instead of just having a very generic report where it's just sitting there for you. Okay.
Yeah, the tags again are one of the most powerful portions of the program, allowing you to slice and dice exactly what you're looking for. I think this is one of the biggest pieces, like I was saying, across all of most of the pages in Practice Panthers. So if you do get a chance to play around with the program or have a demo with Chris or anyone on the team, you definitely are going to realize how important, strong, and just incredible these tags allow you to function throughout the program.
Absolutely. And then staying on top of everything. So one thing that you really want to do is let the notifications and let your calendaring and your agenda, help you dictate your day, right? So obviously every firm, everybody usually lives out of their calendars, what they need to do. These notifications can be preset. They can be, you can create multiple notifications per task or per event or anything that you need to complete on your agenda. And the notifications can go out via pop-up in Practice Panther, for example, an email, or also a text message. These text messages and emails can also go out to your clients, as I had mentioned before, so that you can keep the firm very updated, very communicated with what they need to complete or attend, any deadlines, and also your clients, anything that they need to complete or attend for your firm. It's right there for them, and it's continuously reminding them. You can also have a daily emailed agenda, like your daily email agenda for the entire team. So I can see what's going on. And you can prioritize things, right? Medium, high, low priority. I can break down my to do list from what's more important to what's less important and just kind of attack the day that way. Cool. Awesome. And then, I mean, essentially, notifications just broke down into the reminders that I was talking about. Like I said, you could also make different tasks and events not only just set up with multiple reminders, but you can prioritize them. You can create reoccurring events, right? So if I do something every day, week, month, or year, I might as well just have it on my calendar instead of always having to worry to create it and put it there. So the software always knows. You can make things private just for yourself. And then also you can tag different task events and things like that. So again, if I have like deadlines, I can go ahead and break down like a quick report to see all my deadlines instead of just having to go through my task and see what I need to do. This helps you not only just stay very on top of things with reminders, but helps you categorize and organize your to-do list and also prioritize it so that you can continue to be very, very diligent with what's more important, what's not, and how I'm going to attack my day across the board. Cool.
Yeah, and if you're anything like me, you can set up to 5 different reminders on these events or tasks. So if you want to pop up in the program, 2 hours before the event or task, then an email and then a text message, then maybe another email. And not only can you do this to yourselves, but again, you can, relay these reminders to the client. So if they're supposed to be, your personal injury firm and you need the client to come to make it to the doctor's meeting or the doctor's appointment, so that you have all the medical information necessary to succeed in the case, you want to use these reminders to kind of notify and ping your clients of where they need to be, when they need to be, and really why. So just another useful piece of, functionality and feature that's going to help you automate a lot of what you're doing today. And automating all of that, again, is going to help you streamline the process of what you're doing and eventually growing out your law firm and succeeding in your very own way. So super, super crucial and highly suggested that technology in some sort of way is implemented into your firms to be able to accomplish all of that.
Exactly correct. And you can see Sammy's face right here, so we know he needs
Yeah,
reminders in his life.
that's me. That's me.
Awesome, guys. Well, I mean, aside from that, just wanted to thank everybody very much so for your time, ladies and gentlemen. I think that this is going to be very beneficial for you guys to really think about how to scale your practice, how to really attack the day, how to attack your entire year, and where the future is really going as far as case management software. Aside from that, I'm going to leave it off to Sam, and then any questions that we need to answer, more than happy to go on it.
Wow,
Yeah, I
thanks so
mean,
much, Chris
Joy.
and Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of information to go over. Thanks so much. I do have a few questions, but I did want to let the attendees know that I went ahead and put your email address as well as the website in the chat box. So if we do not get to their questions, they can reach out to you both directly. So
Perfect.
Awesome.
first
Thank you, Joy.
question, and yeah, you're welcome. You can decide who answers these. Just say your name before you answer the question. But the first question is, how many intake forms or templates can I make on Practice Panther?
You got it, Sam.
So with Practice Panther's intake form and templates, it's unlimited. So yeah, that's right. It's part of your subscription. You can create as many intake forms as we spoke about on that slide earlier, as many document templates. I've seen firms with literally thousands of these in their system. I've seen other firms with just one basic intake form, basic template, but the answer is an unlimited amount of those forms and document automation templates.
Wow, fantastic. And then I have another question here that's asking, how secure is the online signature feature?
Go ahead, Chris.
It's very, very secure. I mean, we used to integrate it with DocuSign, and when we decided to roll this out natively, it's something that we attacked very, very much so with detail. We worked under this Microsoft Azure platform. We have our own 256-bit military encryption. And our CTO used to do cyber intelligence for the Army, so we really dive into the security portion of everything about the software, obviously including that e-signature.
Fantastic. Thanks. And then with all of this in the platform, what kind of training can someone get from Practice Panther?
Got it, Sam.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Sam here again. So the training, again, is part of your subscription on the business plan. You get unlimited and free training with that subscription. Now, the way it's done is basically a shared screen through a program like Zoom, for example, where your customer success manager, and if you don't already know, basically when you sign up to Practice Panther on the business plan, you get a dedicated customer success manager who will walk you through the onboarding process, train you and your firm, and always have really your back to be able to train you once you're onboarded in the future. And it's a really useful, awesome resource to have. And like Chris was saying earlier, setting up those templates, those workflows, that's what that person will help with.
Fantastic. And I'm going to try to squeeze one more question in before we have to jump off here. But this one says, we are interested in sending automated surveys to our clients after certain meetings. Is this something that is possible within Practice Panther? If so, what is the best way to do it?
You got it, Sam.
Yeah, so for that one, there are, again, Practice Panther has so many awesome native useful tools. There are also a lot of integrations and third-party bridge apps. So there's a few different ways to get that accomplished. When you reach out and we demo you, we'll show you how to do that. But this is also something that we've heard from a few clients, and it's something we're looking into to potentially, again, build natively, possibly down the road. But there are ways to do that through third-party integrations now and whatnot, which is a lot of what technology does. You don't want to limit yourself to just what you do. If someone, excels at surveys or excels at document management, and your firm is already using it, we don't want you to not come to us because we can't work with them. And that's one of the things that we do is work with the.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. I would encourage, if I did not get to your questions today, reach out to Chris and Sam. Again, their email addresses are in the chat box. I want to say thank you to both of you for an engaging and informative webcast today. And if you have any closing remarks, you can do so now.
Yeah, I
Anything
just want
last
to,
minute?
first of all, thank you, Joyce, so much for hosting this and doing such a fantastic job in, making this very easy for us, and also thanking everyone who joined us today. I hope this, like Joyce said, that this was informative and educational, and we really hope that you got something away from this. And if you ever need anything, you can always reach out. We want to be more of a resource and a trusted advisor. So if you have questions about something else you're looking at, or how your tools are today and how it can work with us, please feel free to reach out. You have our emails, you have our websites, and everything that you need to do that. So again, thank you to everybody. This has been fantastic.
Thank you, everyone.